Hey y'all, Mac here. This is going to be the final build update for the Falling Thunder Amazon, and I have made enough upgrades to where I feel pretty happy finalizing the build. I think that where it's at right now, it's really comfortable for most content in the game. It's finally able to run Abyss, and it's been doing really well in group play as well, even with all the juice rares and juiced Abyss. So let me walk through all of the gear, the tree choices, as well as how to craft some of the GG finalized gear. I'll go over some of the alternative options for defensives, as well as some cool uniques that I got to try out. And yeah, first and foremost, let's go over some of the major changes and what I'm running on my gems. So I am playing Spear Throw now, and Spear Throw is going to have pinpoint critical, blazing critical, blindside, elemental armaments, multi-shot. These two aren't really necessary, but I'm playing them anyways. You mainly just want to be critting with Spear Throw as well as being able to proc this. So when you crit, it gives you 15% gained as extra fire, and on top of that, it also gives you some power charges thanks to Vols. So it helps us generate from a range if we can't be in melee. Our Falling Thunder is going to be playing the same things: Rage Forge 2, Nova Projectiles, Ricochet 2. I'm still playing Gargon's Resolve for Bifurcate, and I'm playing Rakiata's Flow to invert LE reses, so we don't want any exposure anywhere else, and Pen has much lower value. Whirling Slash, make sure this gem is level 1. I noticed a lot of people had questions about why they were running out of mana with Whirling Slash. You really want to keep this at level 1, and if you can avoid getting +3 on your amulets, that is an option. You'll lose levels on Wind Dancer if you don't play a +3 amulet. But that's honestly fine. It's really not that big of a difference. I just happen to have enough currency to play a +3. You could play +3 proj, or you could just play no plus level at all on your amulet. But for this, we want Rigwold's Ferocity, and we want our Spear on weapon set 1. That way we have 30% increased attack speed. We're also playing Rapid Attacks, Pinpoint Critical, Rage 3, and Heightened Accuracy. Pinpoint Critical and Heightened Accuracy are just to buff up the crit rate. My current crit rate on it is about 46.86%. And with Rage 3, you're able to basically generate a crap ton of rage for your Rage Forge on Falling Thunder. For my auras, I'm actually running quite a few. So I'm using the Wolfpack tech. You can play Ramira's Requital and Aminamu's Tithe. And what this does is, whenever your minions die, it gives you 3 Abyssal modifiers. We have 5 wolves, so it'll just roll those automatically. And this Ramira's Requital is just for a little bit of extra tankiness while they're up. Feeding Frenzy is so they take more damage, so they die faster, and cycle our buffs a lot faster. These are the buffs right here. And Infernal Legion 3, which makes them burn for a lot of their health. And that's how you can see these wolves spawning in and then immediately dying almost. On Herald of Thunder, I am playing Lightning Attunement, Electrocute, Pinpoint Critical, Ambush, and Longshot. This helps our charge generation as well as just deal some damage and clearing across the screen, and at the same time it also looks really cool. Ghost Dance is one of our defensive auras. We're playing this to basically recover our ES occasionally. It gives us ES recovery based on our evasion, so occasionally we'll just recover it. We're going to be playing Compressed Duration and Precision. So Compressed Duration just makes it to where we get those like spikes of recovery more frequently. This Precision 2, you can drop for Precision 1 or drop all together. You're going to lose crit if you drop it, and it is very good value, I think, for 20 Spirit. But if you're hurting on Spirit, you could drop this, or you could drop Wolfpack, in my opinion, out of all of the gems. Wind Dancer is going to be, I think, our main defensive layer. We just get more evasion per stage. We're playing Culmination, Charge Perfusion, Eyeless Charms, and then Blind and Life Leech. Blind and Life Leech are kind of the flexible ones. Ideally, you have Blind, and Life Leech helps just, if we get hit, our life is going to be low, but then that Wind Dancer hit should bring us back up. And with Soul Tether, it should also help us with some ES Leech. But what's important here is you actually can't equip Charge Perfusion and Eyeless until you have your Culmination in. And so you can see if I try to sock it in Charge Perfusion or Eyeless, it's not going to work. You need to put Culmination in, and then Eyelets, and then Charge Perfusion, like so. For charge regulation, this is going to give us just 27% more crit, and most of the time we're also going to have that 26% increased skill speed, thanks to Combat Frenzy. Occasionally we'll have endurance charges cycling, which will also give us more defenses, evasion, and ES, which is really huge because those are our main defensive layers. I'm running an Uhtred's Exodus because it only needs 1 support gem, and this just gives us a little bit more bonuses. This is not required. Combat Frenzy is, I think, really helpful. This combination of these 2 auras, I think, is something you should definitely go for relatively early with the build, and we're just going to run Charge Perfusion there. Finally, I'm running Thunderstorm just to initially shock the boss. You can put this down before the boss spawns in, just for a, for me, it's around a 30% shock at the very start of the fight, and it'll basically just make it a little bit easier for them to shock. For this final magnified area is kind of flexible. You can run Duration, you can run anything. If you don't have Rockiatas, you can run Lightning Exposure here. I run Overcharge, Commiserate, and Shock Condition 2. So let's get into what I would consider the nitty-gritty of the build, is the gearing options for it. So first off, we need a really good spear and really good quarterstaff to make the build start feeling good at all. The most important stats on this spear are the suffixes. The prefixes actually don't matter at all, though getting a little bit of extra accuracy is not a bad deal since you get more crit out of it. Me personally, I would consider just honestly trying to find one for sale. The Grant's life per hit isn't 100% mandatory. If you have enough recovery elsewhere and you have good leech, you can actually opt out of that mod. It's just really good for bossing if you need to get some really quick life recovery during bosses. But then again, you can also just hit your flask. It's just a final touch on a spear. What your options are for bases, in my opinion, is either a Soaring Spear or a Koyan Spear. The Soaring Spear has a much higher attack speed, and it goes up to around 2.2, 2.24, 2.26. But the base crit is going to be much lower at around 9.5 to, at highest I'd seen, I think is 10 with a rune. But an Koyan Spear has a much higher base crit chance. And the only downside is you lose a bit of attack speed, which also means you lose some movement speed across the map. But I think it is worth it just for a little bit better charge generation. Though that is, again, more up to you than anything. Both work. How you can actually go about crafting this is you can have a tier 1 crit magic spear and then just essence on tier 2 attack speed. Or you can opt to get a fractured crit or attack speed and then Chaos Orb for the other one. That's much more expensive and the chance to hit is much lower, but that is an option if you're really trying to min-max and is something that I'm even considering doing on a exceptional base with 2 sockets. You really want this chance to gain power charge, to gain an additional power charge on it. I don't think there's any other option that makes sense here. This is just what you need, as our build is exclusively a power charge stacker. For our quarterstaff, this is actually my endgame 1. I don't think it's going to get much better than this, and it frankly cannot. Plus melee, I don't think is even that good because you lose the levels on your Herald of Thunder. So how you actually go about crafting this is actually really easy, and it's 100% deterministic. You just need to hit the Chaos Orb. So I start out with a tier 1 fractured flat lightning on it, and you want to annul everything off except for one singular mod, and that one singular mod, you just reroll with a Chaos Orb until you hit tier 1 crit. Once you hit that tier 1 crit, you want to fill your prefixes, or you can do one prefix at a time, it doesn't matter, but you want to use the omen that makes it to where your Exalted Orb only slams prefixes. Next, you want to use the Essence Omen that removes only prefix modifiers, and you want to perfect battle and then use the Omen so it removes one of your random prefixes that you slammed on and adds the +5, and then use the same Omen again with a perfect Essence of Haste to remove another prefix and put on Onslaught. That way you have all 3 of these suffixes already set and done. You have 2 empty prefix modifiers, which now you want to slam on 2 more modifiers. You use your, you can either Desecrate prefix, or you can use greater essence of, perfect essence of electricity for the gain as, and you Desecrate for 50-50, and you basically just back and forth those 2. Once you fill your prefixes, do keep in mind that you don't have to use a prefix essence omen. It is guaranteed to only remove prefix modifiers because those are the only modifiers that are available for those mod spaces. So you can avoid spending a lot of currency that way. You just literally back and forth until you hit a Desecrate and a Gain As. Do keep in mind with the Desecrate, you want to use an Olamon Omen. I believe it's Sovereign, but I would need to double check. I think it is. The Omen modifier is what gives you the percent lightning damage and magnitude of shock. It is, again, 100% deterministic and really easy to craft as long as you have the Chaos Orbs to spam. From what I checked, it's a 0.0011 odds, so it's about 1 in 1,000 in order to hit that tier 1 crit. So, let's look at our helmet options. So, on the helmet, I think you need to fill reses wherever possible. My helmet is where I'm getting a lot of my Chaos res, as well as some Fire res, right? As far as prefixes go, you want as much evasion as possible, but thanks to the removal of homogenizing exaltation omens, you can't really force like T1 evasion across the board as easily anymore. And so I would say try to hit around 1100 evasion if possible. Otherwise, get something like this, get the accuracy per evasion for extra crit from Amazon. And then more importantly also, I do have a T1 mana roll on this. Mana is actually kind of a problem with this build. Because we're running Vols, we lose a lot of max mana. So getting a little bit of mana and then having some mana recovery really makes the build feel super comfy. I would say, ideally, you get that mana on like boots or something. Even a ring would probably be better. You could also get a hybrid mod with mana evasion. So there's a lot of options, but this is just what I have that's available, and it's really hard to find something that's better, as this is double T1 evasion. For your Vulse Protector, the most important thing is the chance to gain power charge on crit mod. I tried to find one that was overcorrupted with 3 sockets. The reduced max mana, ideally you want lower, but that's not as important. Same with the Chaos Res, and you want ideally as much ES on this as possible. For the Amulet, you're going to want Spirit, and you're going to want a lot of it, because this build uses a lot of auras. Again, if I dropped Wolfpack, I could probably get rid of either my Against the Darkness, or I could get rid of this Amulet, basically. But I like to have all my auras, and so I have to opt for Spirit here. There's not really a good way to craft this, so I would recommend just saving up to buy one. The prefixes can actually be whatever you want, and you can just basically look to gamble. If you have Fractured Spirit on the Amulet, you can fill prefixes and just Perfect Enhancement and Desecrate 50-50 to look for that, or Prefix Desecrate to look for that max ES or flat ES or whatever else. You can also opt to not play melee skills here and instead get crit damage. You can get rarity if you wanted to. You can really get any mod you want. I'd say crit chance here is really good. You can also offer crit chance on the helmet. But getting crit wherever you can is also very, very helpful. The mana regen on this is kind of a dead mod, as I now have recover mana during mapping. But for bosses, it is kind of nice, so it is not necessarily a 100% dead mod, but it is kind of helpful. What I do want to know why we're taking a decent bit of mana recovery is this Great Rune of Willpower is like a 15% DR so long as we have mana. It is really helpful for damage mitigation on this build, since our life pool is so low compared to what other builds can have. And so, yeah, 15% on your body armor is really helpful. And yeah, same thing with like reduced curse effect. Like, get this on your body armor if you can. If you need to cap Chaos Res, then go for Chaos Res instead. For our rings, I'm just getting a lot of flat damage and reses on my rings. You want at least 1 Leech Fizz's life on some piece of your gear. That can be your gloves, though I wouldn't recommend gloves. But if you can find res on a ring instead of leech, and you can find leech on gloves, I would do that. Try to get flat lightning if possible. Flat fizz is also okay. You can get rarity if you want to stack some rarity. Getting even like flat evasion is also pretty helpful. Percent lightning is always really good. And yeah, not too much to say about those. These are relatively expensive to get really good reses here, but sometimes it's necessary to cap reses. For your gloves, I think gloves actually have a lot of a pretty high ceiling for scaling your damage, so I would actually recommend trying to get attack speed on these. You can play crit damage instead, but I would recommend getting attack speed, as it's gonna just make the build feel a lot smoother. The more attack speed, the faster you move. Getting res here is also helpful. Getting flat damage on the prefixes is an option. Ideally, you get as much evasion as possible. I don't have great gloves here, but these are actually very expensive due to having deflection as well as attack speed on top of really high evasion. So it's going to be expensive to get anything much better than this. Again, a lot of the pieces of gear of this build are just really hard to make now, thanks to them deleting the omen of homogenizing exaltation. But your boots, the nice thing about these is that you don't actually need move speed on these, so you just try to get as much ES and evasion as possible. For your gloves and your boots, you can opt to get ES evasion, or you can opt to just play full-on evasion on one piece. I would highly recommend you probably play one hybrid piece, that way you have more than like 600 ES. But there is an alternative option where if you don't want to build ES, you can actually play Edzeri's Step. And Edzeri's Step are these new boots that basically give you much more deflection rating, and it makes it to where you can't be light stunned from deflected hits. And the only downside is that it has a minus damage prevented from deflected hits, which can actually be, it can be Vol Culmination off, and you can replace it with a beneficial modifier like more flat evasion. Those boots are extremely expensive. I think they're minimum 50 div right now. So swapping to that is really difficult. I personally tested it, and I didn't find it was all that much tankier. I think that evasion, honestly, just like, because the DR is so hard, it doesn't really have as much value as getting some ES as well. There is an argument that because you have less overall, like, life, a smaller life pool, that all your recovery effects are better, but that doesn't matter if, you know, you lose the deflection chance. Like, even if you have 80%, if you just take one boss slam and it doesn't deflect, you're just dead. Versus if you have some ES and you don't deflect, you might still be able to live it. So, in my opinion, I think ES is still better, especially due to the existence of Soul Tether. But otherwise, you can play full deflection, you can get rid of Soul Tether, you can play Headhunter. And that option is honestly probably going to be a little bit faster because of Headhunter. Now, the belt option here, of course, I just said Headhunter. You can play a rare belt with mana recovery to make use of Lamiangas. This is amazing for mana recovery. I wouldn't consider any other option. So Soul Tether is actually really helpful here if you can get rid of the detrimental mod, which is, I think, like you lose ES or life, one of the two. I believe it's you lose ES per second. So if you're able to Cultivation Orb that off, and you keep the excess life recovery is applied to ES, it becomes a really strong belt. And so what this does is whenever you have to have some missing life, and you attack, your leech is going to apply to that energy shield, right? So on this build, when we Falling Thunder, our max life goes to 1519. And then when we swap back to Whirling Slash, so we're like Whirling Slash, we Falling Thunder, and then we're back to Whirling Slashing, we're not at max health, meaning our life leech can actually give us life. And if that life leech overflows, it's going to go into our ES. And so how that works is, while we're going around and we're killing stuff, even if you have recovery from other sources or like life gain, you'll still be able to make use of it because basically whenever you swap, you hit the first hit from that quarterstaff, and right as you swap back, any of the projectiles after that initial hit are going to leech life for you. And if it doesn't, then you just basically have max HP from the grant life per enemy hit. So this build can keep its like max life very easily. It can most of the time keep its max ES up. And usually on bossing, if I take a hit and I go to like half HP, if I Falling Thunder even one time, I tend to go all the way to full HP. For flasks, besides Laviangas, you could play Oroths here. I didn't really see a big use for it. I don't really ever go like super low life, besides having my recovery disabled from Abyss, which means Oroth doesn't even have that much use. But you can choose to run it. It's like one final upgrade, and it's an instant flask, so it'll probably save you better than like a normal life flask. Again, that's like a final upgrade. I wouldn't consider that priority at all. Now, Rite of Passage right now is an absurd price. It always goes up. I always say get Rite of Passage, get Headhunter, and get like Palm of the Dreamer, that type of item super early in the league. That way you're kind of avoiding the insane inflation that happens to these prices. I think that it does help a lot in mapping scenarios, but I almost never go into like map bosses with this on anyways, as it only lasts around 19 seconds and we're not scaling any duration. So what you can actually make use of is the skill speed from Spirit of the Wolf. And that's about it. Movement speed for us is pretty useless. Armor break is relatively useless. Chance to maim on hit is the only other mod on this that's actually useful. And it just reduces enemy evasion and also reduces their move speed, which is kind of nice. But it honestly is just not that high value. You could opt to play Owl for a lot more damage. You can play Bear for tankiness. Or if you have an absurd amount of money for whatever reason, play Cat, because that's going to be the best. It gives you evasion, crit, and skill speed, which are going to be insane for this build. So Cat's always going to be the best. But again, you play what you can afford. You don't even need this at all. I think if you don't want to play this, just play Stone Charm, and you'll be good to go. Nascent Hope is really nice. Gain charge on when you kill an enemy while it's active. And then whenever we become frozen, the ES recharge start is really nice just to basically keep you tanky while you're frozen. Or while you take a freezing hit. Bear's Anguish, I think this is actually really helpful to do with Ignites. Again, it's gain a charge when you kill an enemy. All the other ones are... the other mod on it is kind of whatever, but just having an immune to Ignite makes Abyss a lot more playable, I think. And pair this with Cap Chaos Res, the degen isn't going to insta you. You're going to be able to actually have time to react, rolling slash out of the Shadewalker and start regenerating your HP, or leeching. But yeah, that's going to be the gear setup. Again, for the endgame gear, I wouldn't recommend any real alternatives. I think you should buy, like, rings, amulets, gloves, basically everything here you buy, and then your weapons you can actually self-craft, I think, for much cheaper than the market. But that's just my opinion and what I've found. You don't need a lot of, like, these good stats to start out, but this is going to be the endgame version of the guide, so I'm not going to go over that starter gear. You can check out the earlier videos for that. Alright, let's look at some of the choices that I made on the skill tree. So, for our Ascendancy, I'm going to go over this first. We have Stalking Panther. This just makes use of the fact that our body armor is 0 evasion. So we have no downside. It just doubles our evasion rating that we get from helmet, gloves, and boots. The reason why I swapped to pure evasion gloves is because with the other one, you're probably only hitting like 20k evasion at best, if everything else is like T1. And I wanted to get around 67 to 68% evasion, which this accomplishes. But again, you can play hybrid if you want a little more ES. If you really want, you can also just play Subterfuge Mask and a ES helmet, though keep in mind that your evasion rating will be tanked to about 50%. We also play Mystic Harvest. This Life Leech basically makes it to where any Fizz Life Leech we have on our gear is going to apply to our elemental damage that we do. We basically only do elemental damage, so we just get Life Leech from our damaging hits, and that's it. Pair that with Soul Tether, we have insane recovery. Predatory Instinct is just more damage, nothing to say really about that. And Critical Strike means we can stack a bunch of accuracy nodes on the tree, as well as some pieces on our gear, as well as this Olamon's Gaze on our helmet, and we will get a bunch of crit chance, which we need desperately for this build to work, due to Vol's Protector. Besides that, the only real notable like weird pathing is I'm taking some mana recovery from flasks. These aren't really 100% necessary. You can swap out of them if you'd like. I think these nodes are pretty good for evasion, but if you already have a lot, you can kind of take those off and put them elsewhere. Everything else is pretty like standard for this build. You do need 2 weapon sets for this, obviously, because it is a constantly weapon swapping build, and you need to set that tree up for that. You just need to click this arrow to allocate those points to your respective weapon sets. And obviously, we're going to be taking like quarterstaff nodes. These are really important, like one of the Storm, for our like second weapon set. Keep in mind, second weapon set should always be quarterstaffs. First should always be spear, because of Rigwald's ferocity. Besides that, power charges, and yeah, the only other notable things is the jewels. So I'm running just 1 rare jewel now. I have a Heart of the Well with double recovery, gain as, and mana cost efficiency. The mana cost efficiency takes our Falling Thunder from 175 all the way down to 151, and I think that this actually helps a surprisingly amount. The recovery, I think you at least want recover mana on kill. This one just happened to have gain as with a recover life, and it was relatively cheap for what I would expect these mods to be. But yeah, just try to find one with recover mana and mana cost efficiency. You can get damage as you go. I'm running from nothing to be able to spec 4 nodes, actually 6 nodes, sorry, 7 nodes from Resonance. And these are really high value nodes for our build. So we're playing Chakra of Thought. This gives us increased attack speed while not on low mana. While mapping, because we have Recover, we're basically almost always on full mana. So we'll just always have 15% increased attack speed. And there's another thing of note, during any Flask effect, our Lava Youngins is always up, so we have 16% increased attack speed. Attack speed on this build is everything combined with crit. It gives us more power charge generation, and it obviously is just more attack speed with a Whirling Slash build. I'm taking the 2 crit nodes right here. We can't path to this one, unfortunately, but it's a good sacrifice to give us these nodes. So this is Days on Hit. Not too high value, but 12 Spirit, obviously. This, again, is like percent Fizz, kind of low value. This is at least like some Dexterity, which is a good stat, but also kind of low value. But this one has 15% Evasion. So these nodes are relatively low value, but when they give us 12 Spirit to be able to run all of our auras, it suddenly becomes really good. And so where are we getting the Spirit, right? We're playing Against the Darkness with a plus 12 Spirit roll. You don't need a plus 12 on this. You can run like a plus 10 maybe if you're not running like Precision or whatever else. But I would recommend trying to get it max rolled, and if you could buy a low Spirit one and try to divine it yourself. Usually that's a lot cheaper, but it's hard to say. You want to check the market. My next upgrade is honestly probably going to be a plus Spirit and Gain As. That's around 10% more damage than the one I have right now. You can get like a Gain As Cold, Gain As Lightning, Gain As whatever. And that'll just give you more damage, especially when you're speccing 5 to 6 nodes. This one is actually fairly good. It's just 40% increased attack damage. It's kind of a dead bottom mod, but it's still pretty good, and it's only 2 points from here. So that is an option to play. You could look into playing this. Increase ES is actually not bad on this build, and Recover Max Life here is not bad either. But, this is like another 3 points that you'll have to find somehow on your tree. Okay, so I want to go over, first off, like how you level this build, and then how you want to like transition it, like how much currency you want to have. Spoiler, it's a lot right now with all the items, but you can self-craft some of it, like I said. So you want to level this on the Amazon as a grenade build. You can run that grenade build into T15s relatively comfortably. You'll probably have issues with tankiness more than anything. Damage on the grenade build, explosive grenade and cluster grenade, honestly was not an issue at all. Like, Rares took a couple hits of cluster or explosive, but overall, its damage was absolutely insane. Like, grenade builds have always been that way. It's just that there was no way to scale tankiness, and so I wouldn't take that past, like, maybe 4 mod tier 15s, if even. But that build is what I would run until you farm up enough currency. I'd say minimum, probably like 40 div at this point, to be able to craft yourself a good spear and quarterstaff and some starter evasion gear. You can always use like the greater enhancements to craft yourself some starter gear. That's going to be a lot cheaper than trying to just buy these outright. These are probably in the like 10 to 50 div zone to get stuff as good as this. And the overall build right now is probably sitting at around 300 to 400 div. I'm not 100% sure because prices keep changing, but it's definitely not a build you want to swap to on a low budget because it's just going to feel really bad. Again, you need enough crit to be able to generate your power charges very consistently, and you need enough damage on your Falling Thunder to actually kill stuff pretty much in one hit. If you can't kill a rare in one hit, it feels really bad. Because you're basically having to generate charges again to hit it again. Versus if you're able to kill in one, you can just move on to the next pack with Whirling Slash. And while you're moving there, you'll generate your charges by hitting mobs on the way to the next like big pack or big rare. But the actual playstyle of the build just feels really good. Like, you're just holding down Whirling Slash to move around the map. It's definitely much faster than other builds. I'd say it's probably one of the fastest builds that you can play right now, besides like a sprinting Pathfinder with a crap ton of speed. But even then, I think this is still going to be faster, and it's because you're like you're like building your resources while you're moving, and you're only stopping to attack like one time. Like, it's a one click, and then you're moving again, as opposed to having to move attack with other builds, other attack builds. And so yeah, I think that this build excels right now in speed content, doing like rarity stacking content for Abyss and like maybe like Juice Breach, mostly Abyss though. The degen is annoying, but it is still like playable. You just have to be careful since your life pool is a lot smaller, but you're not like a Blood Mage or like a Titan where you're like spending life. and just like getting insta'd by the Shadewalker mob. You can actually survive the degen assuming you have Cap Chaos Res and Ignite immunity. However, I still wouldn't recommend it being the best build for that. Like a Headhunter setup might be better for that Juiced Abyss farming. However, this build excels in things like boss rushing. So what I was doing for a little bit was farming lineage gems. I can clear maps in literally a minute, like 1 minute flat. Assuming I'm skipping all of the things in the map. Or you can do stuff like essence farming, where you can just run around the map looking for essences, go straight to the boss, kill it, gives you markers for essences, rinse, repeat, right? I farm essences for the majority of my currency until the tablets got crazy, and so this build felt really good for that. I've been doing Breach recently, and this build feels great with that as well, because I can just bounce back and forth from any ends of the Breach without having to sacrifice too much time. While on other builds, like my Blood Mage, without move speed back in the day, you would basically have to sit on one side of the Breach for a while, being inefficient with how many mobs are spawning, killing them, and then moving to the other side and killing them before the Breach closes. This build can just keep running around the Breach and just killing everything. You get way more splinters that way. The actual bossing on this build is like any other melee build, I would say. You can't really play it like a range build. You can like Spear Throw to generate charges, but it's not as efficient. Your best bet, honestly, is just to learn some of the boss mechanics so you're not tanking slams, because this build can it can survive a lot of like the smaller hits from bosses, but a big slam will probably still one-shot you. Some of the Xesht hits will as well, but if you get enough damage, you saw like in the showcase, it can pretty much two-shot bosses. If you time the DR right and you set up everything, you have Infernal Cry as well, which I took out. You could probably one-shot Xesht. I just don't really care enough for that. As long as you're dodging like the major attacks, bossing is pretty easy on this build as well. But yeah, I'm really happy with how this build went. I think that it had a really rocky start because I swapped too early personally. Again, I wouldn't swap without getting a really like fair amount of crit. I would bargain to say aim for like 40% minimum with really good attack speed, and if you can't get to that, you're going to notice it. It's going to take much longer to generate your charges for Falling Thunder, which in turn means you're standing there, whirling, slashing into a pack of mobs that could probably just hit you and kill you, even if they're blinded. Like, eventually they're going to hit you with something big, and you're going to take a bunch of damage. And if you're on, like, a budget setup, you probably don't have the evasion or the ES to really, like, deal with that either. So you just really want, like, a good setup before you start swapping to this build. But that being said, again, the grenades can clear T15s, like, no problem. You can farm currency there. You can do stressor, like, a little bit easier. And just build up your currency to be able to swap to this build. But as far as endgame and maxing, yeah, I think the major points of damage are going to be, like, ATD jewels, Heart of the Wells, your quarterstaff getting basically like T1 lightning flat and then T1 crit, and then a really good spear to just up your charge generation to make everything feel a little bit smoother. You can get a crazy double corrupted vols, stuff like that. But yeah, I might make some more updates on the game. Plan to see a group play video sometime after the holidays, which basically is going to like be a little bit more fun as opposed to like a guide. I really am disappointed with this league, to be honest. I think like they just didn't hash out any of the bugs that were still like really annoying to deal with. A lot of the classes just feel the exact same. The content in Endgame feels the exact same, but like the only real thing honestly that's keeping me playing is group play. So I'm gonna focus more on that. I don't think I'm gonna make another build honestly, but if I do find something cool, I will try and make an update video on that. But yeah, until next time. Ciao.